Part 6. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 57. This island turned out to be the country of Magnetic Drum. Rog looked at the drum island, and his memory about pirates in his previous life was overturned again. Obviously, everything in this pirate world is more exaggerated. Not only are the enemies more powerful, but many facilities and countries also appear more magnificent. Drum Country was originally just an idyllic ice and snow kingdom, but now it has become a modern country. This is the Magnetic Drum Country, so we came here. Wei observed the island repeatedly and said. Luffy looked at the port of Drum Country and said, "This looks interesting. Let's land." Usopp looked at Drum Island and said, "It looks like there are people there, so it's very safe. Okay, let's all land on this island together under the leadership of the brave Captain Usopp. This island looks very modern. Do we need to find a doctor? Let's go up together," Rog said. "By the way, I also need to buy some more food," Sanji said. The Mary continued to sail and entered the port of the Magnetic Drum Country. "The surrounding scenery is truly spectacular," Usopp said. "The port is indeed well built. The warehouses, lighthouses, and port authority buildings near the port are solid and gorgeous. The Magnetic Drum Country is a well-known medical power on the Great Route. Although the country is small in size, many advanced medical technologies and medical scientists have been born here," Wei said. "Really? Then we can find a doctor from here to be the ship's doctor," Luffy said. Sanji hovered beside Nami and Vivi. "Miss Nami, it's so cold here, you should wear more clothes. Miss Wei, you are from a desert country. Let me make you some hot chocolate to warm you up." Sanji greeted the two beauties with greetings. Just as the Mary broke down in the port, a group of soldiers in cotton uniforms came quickly. "Hey, are you pirates?" asked a burly officer. "Of course it is," Luffy immediately pointed at the pirate flag proudly and said. Nami and Usopp also looked dissatisfied. "Really, I admitted it so quickly. What if people guard against pirates?" Nami said. "I don't know if these people have good intentions." Usopp also had a serious face. However, Rog and Wei both noticed that these soldiers looked very ugly. Apparently they don't welcome pirates. "Pirates? We don't allow any pirates to come and rob here. But you don't seem to have many people. If you can pay enough money, then you can temporarily dock." After thinking about it, the officer said. Although the officer's attitude was extremely bad, everyone can go to shore now. When everyone on board the Melee saw how unfriendly these soldiers were, their faces became ugly. "In this case, we also need supplies and medical treatment. It's better to land," Rog said. "I think so too," Usopp said. "But you still need to pay money." "I don't know how much it will cost," Nami said rather critically. Wei said with a relaxed face, "Don't worry, everyone. There are still some funds in my small treasury that can be used." Nami's face also became happy, and she said, Wei, thank you so much." "It's okay, it's for everyone," Wei said. Everyone went to the building of the Port Authority together. It has to be said that the construction inside is quite luxurious. After walking to the boarding office lobby, I asked about the price. "Why do you want 30 Baileys?" Wei was also very surprised when she learned the price. "Hey, you guys are too many. Our ships are not big," Nami said angrily. The official in charge of the registration looked indifferent. He looked down on pirates from the bottom of his heart, and everyone thought they were illegals taking shelter temporarily. "Hey, you guys are pirate ships. If it weren't for the fact that you didn't intend to rob, you wouldn't even be eligible to pay the rent," said the bureaucratic official. The previous officer in charge of the port patrol squad was also on the sidelines. He also said, "Actually, according to the laws of the world government, pirates are not allowed to dock at any regular port. If it weren't for the tolerance of His Majesty Wapoli, the port of the magnetic drum country could accept any non-aggressive guests. You have already it was shot down by the patrols with artillery. Luffy was a little angry and dissatisfied. Rog quickly stopped him and said, then we can park as long as we spend the money. You guys are lucky. It just happens to be the off-season for shipping recently. Therefore, there are a lot of vacant berths. Your ships are not big, which is not too expensive. And the 30 Baileys are only enough to park 2 days. Subsequent renewals are 10 Baileys per day, said the registration official. That's too expensive. A ship 10 times bigger than ours is the same price in a normal port, Nami said quite angrily. Wei thought for a moment and said, okay. Then I'll pay the money. Vivi, Nami said. It doesn't matter, it's so that everyone can go to the island for supplies and medical treatment, Wei said firmly. Sanji immediately filled his eyes with love, and said, as expected of Miss Wei, she is decisive for the overall situation. Wei then took out 30 Baileys and registered after paying. Everyone then left here. After leaving the Port Authority, everyone walked to the urban area on the island behind the port. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 58. The scenery of Magnetic Drum Kingdom is indeed spectacular. From here, you can see 7 huge iron barrel-like peaks standing on the land of the island. One of the tallest main peaks is even more exaggerated. The sky is falling with heavy snow, which gives people a romantic feeling just by looking at it. It's really beautiful, Usopp said. I've rarely seen snow either, Luffy said. So, let's have a snowball fight together, Usopp said. Okay, Luffy said happily. Nami saw these two fun-loving guys and immediately scolded, what are you doing here? Hey, Luffy. Did you forget about the wound on your chest? Sanji asked. At the same time, the pain in Sanji's right foot continued. It was not only injured before, but also after a while. Need urgent treatment now. Even now, Sanji walks abruptly. No way, he is like this, Saran said with a sigh. Wei hurried forward to advise the two of them. Luffy, Usopp. We need to find a doctor to heal the injured when we come here. If you want to play, wait until you find a doctor before playing. After hearing Wei's words, Luffy and Usopp also stopped snowballing. Forget it, Luffy. We have 4 wounded here who need treatment, Usopp said. Yeah, we need to find a ship doctor, Luffy said. Everyone walked together in the urban area of Magnetic Drum Country, watching the scenery here by the way. Roger also watched everything around him. Indeed, just by looking at the port and city, you can already feel the development of Seago country. Modern shops, streets, and various hotels. Meanwhile, at the Port Authority, bureau officials and patrol officers discovered a new thing. Take a look. I didn't expect that these guys are still big things. The registration officer of the port administration put a wanted notice on his desk and showed it to the officer. On this arrest warrant is Luffy with a smile on his face. The patrol officer stared intently at the 3,000 million Bailey number under the portrait. Such a small pirate group is actually worth 3,000 million Baileys, the officer said in surprise. The official in charge of the registration continued, after they went to the city, we looked through the recent pirate arrest warrant documents. We wanted to check out which pirates are famous recently. But we didn't expect that these little ghosts are worth 3,000 yuan. 1 Bailey. The officer looked at the wanted notice and then became greedy. It really seemed like a hungry wolf had found food. Well, you think we should catch these guys, the officer said. Of course. 3,000 million Baileys, catch them and go to the Navy to receive rewards. After all, there are many people who know about this kind of thing. Therefore, we still need to report it. Even if it is like that, the share given to us must be a lot. Yes, the officer said excitedly. Yes, His Majesty Wapol will definitely give you many rewards, the officer said. Both of them had bright eyes, as if they had caught gold. Then I'm going to catch these pirates right away, said the officer. Okay, good news for you, said the officer. On the other hand, the Straw Hat Pirates passed by and made inquiries. Finally, I arrived at a hospital in the city. The tall hospital buildings are very neatly constructed. The building of the hospital is very grand even in this urban area. It looks like a good hospital. Let's go in together, Rog said. Okay, find our ship's doctor, Luffy said. Heal all your injuries first, idiot, Sauron said. Your wound was bandaged urgently, I'm afraid it's about to ooze pus, Nami also said. Everyone finally walked into the gate of the hospital building. In the hospital hall, a huge sculpture stands in the center of the hall. The sculpture is none other than a hippopotamus. A rough-looking man. This person is the sculpture of King Wapol of the Magnetic Drum Kingdom. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 59. Seeing this Wapol sculpture, Luffy and Usopp looked strange. Whose sculpture is this? It really looks funny, Luffy said after looking carefully. Or it's stupid enough. Usopp also looked at the sculpture carefully. When the two made a loud noise, other people in the hospital hall looked at them with fearful faces. In Drum Country, even in private, no one dared to comment on Wapoli so boldly. Everyone arrived at the hospital counter together. When everyone was asking, there was a sudden commotion outside the hospital. Why is it so noisy? Sanji looked toward the door of the hospital lobby. Everyone saw a group of soldiers rushing in. This group of people was led by a familiar face, the officer from the previous harbor patrol. When the officer saw that everyone was in the hall, a sinister smile appeared on his face. Usopp looked back at the officer, and whispered, "Why is it this guy again?" "What an unpleasant look," Zoro said as he looked at the officer. Roger looked at the officer, feeling ill-intentioned. The officer quickly took out another wanted warrant from his clothes. "It is the 3,000 million Bailey reward for Luffy. Straw Hat Luffy and his gang, I'm going to arrest you right away," the officer said. "What? Luffy, Usopp, Nami and Vivi were all shocked. Usopp immediately argued, "You just allowed us to stay. Now you want to arrest us?" "Yes, you have already received the money." Nami was very angry. Wei stepped forward and said, "Wait a minute, we have reached an agreement. Since you have agreed to us and we have paid the rent, we can stay here. Or we can leave as soon as possible without extending the time." The officer said with a sinister smile, "Humph, what do you pirates want to say? Since being a pirate is a villain, you don't have that much qualification to talk to me about it." Wei's face was also extremely angry, but her words were still calm. "No matter what, you also let it go in advance. You can't do this. Also, at least wait until we see the doctor before negotiating," Wei said. "How come you pirates are the only ones who still want to see a doctor? This is His Majesty Wapol's hospital. Once you are regarded as lawbreakers, you will have no chance to see a doctor," the officer said. The hospital personnel in the hall all knew the general situation, and some people began to look away. "Hey, I said you are regretting it now because you want to capture us and collect the reward." During the stalemate, Rog's voice suddenly sounded. The officer looked at the brown-haired young man and said, "Humph, you are originally pirates. Since the government is willing to pay, we naturally have no choice but to accept it." Luffy was so angry that he clenched his fist and wanted to shake it out. But Nami gave him a wink and asked him to wait. "Then let's go," Rog said to the others. The officer's face turned ugly and he said, "Let's go, don't make any mistake, we are going to arrest you." Wei said righteously, "You guys are going too far. We also have urgent matters. Someone was injured." At this moment, a scene shocked everyone. The officer waved his fist and aimed at Wei with a punch. You bastard! Sanji immediately growled. Vivi! Nami yelled in shock. Wai Wei was knocked down to the ground by the officer's heavy punch. Before the ferocity on the officer's face dissipated, a thorny whip wrapped around his neck. Roger made a move. Scum! Rog slammed it fiercely, and the whole officer flew with the thorn whip and smashed it hard to the pillar in the hall. Colonel! Those patrol soldiers said in shock. Good job, Sanji said. Roger, Wai Wei said in shock as she fell to the ground. Wai Wei stood up quickly, and Sanji immediately came to help her. Miss Vivi, are you okay? Sanji said softly. At the same time, the patrol soldiers quickly raised their weapons. Pirates are attacking people, hurry up and prepare to fight. The patrol soldiers immediately prepared for battle. One after another they aimed their guns at many people. Luffy said to the others, okay, let's break the siege. Sauron held the scabbard and said, okay, I didn't expect to fight again after getting off the sorrows so shortly. Let's all have a good fight, Rog said. Outside the hospital hall, except for the colonel officer who brought people in, 3 teams totaling nearly 100 soldiers were also deployed outside. Why did someone attack the colonel? Asked an officer. Yes, Lieutenant Colonel. It's the Straw Hat Pirates, a soldier urgently reported. Now the colonel is unconscious, I hope the lieutenant colonel will take command, the soldier continued. Before he could give an order, there was a burst of gunfire in the hospital. At the same time, the 30 soldiers who followed the colonel in flew out one after another. After that, Rog, Zoro, Sanji, Luffy, Usopp, Nami, Wai Wei, and Marianne rushed out. Get ready to fight, the lieutenant colonel ordered. The soldiers outside were still somewhat prepared, and quickly raised their guns to fight. Whips of thorns, split by whirlwind. The thorn whip in Rog's hand rotates like a whirlwind, with huge force and sharp spikes on it, knocking down the enemies encountered like a disc. Rubber. Machine gun. Luffy's fist hit like a storm. More than a dozen enemies were hit and fell. Eagle wave. Sauron swung his swords with sword energy, knocking away a row of gun-wielding enemies in front of him. Sanji jumped to where the enemies were gathered, stood upside down, and started spinning and kicking. Banquet said. Single leg kick. Although his right foot was injured, he still caused great losses to the enemy with his left foot alone. Must kill. 3 consecutive gunpowder stars. Usopp also shoots gunpowder stars with a slingshot. Nami, everyone is fighting so hard. We have to work hard too, Wai Wei said. Wai Wei stood on top of the sprinter and began to swing 2 peacock saws. They ran so fast and were so agile that these soldiers were knocked down before they could react. Nami took out the small wooden stick, but her face was a bit ugly. Several enemies rushed forward. Oops, what should I do? Nami was thinking. Suddenly these soldiers stopped in front and stopped moving. Their faces became extremely sad. What? Nami saw huge blue circles drawn on the ground beneath the feet of these soldiers. The blue of sadness makes the other party depressed, Marianne said while holding a brush and palette. Nami's face showed a bit of complacency now, and she said, "You are really amazing." Then Nami's wooden stick hit the soldiers' heads. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee Er A Dream. Chapter 60. These patrol soldiers were quickly wiped out like wheat. The lieutenant colonel in charge was already frightened. Hurry, machine gun. The lieutenant colonel gave an urgent order. The group of soldiers also deployed 2 machine guns on top of nearby houses as a precaution. Aim at the pirates and fire. 2 machine guns fired a dense rain of bullets. While Usopp quickly ran away in fear. Sanji was also attacked, so he jumped away. These guys also have heavy weapons, Rog said. The 2 machine guns were located on top of 2 nearby buildings. Rog carefully observed the machine gun on top of a building to the right. Sauron, the one on the left is for you, Rog said. After hearing this, Zoro said, okay, no problem. Rog immediately rushed towards the building on the right. With the thorn whip in his hand, he quickly grabbed the top of the 4-story building and pulled himself up. What? The two soldiers manipulating the machine gun looked at Rog in shock. Get off! Rog kicked his feet horizontally and kicked the two soldiers down. Then the machine gun was pulled to the ground by Rog with a vine whip. There seems to be no problem with Sauron. Roger looked at the position of another machine gun. Zoro had already rushed to the top and slashed with his sword, cutting down the two soldiers. The two most threatening machine guns were disarmed. There are probably less than 20 remaining enemies. Rog, Sanji, and others gathered in front of these people. What? With the last scream, all the soldiers except the lieutenant colonel were knocked down. Sanji picked up the cigarette butt in his mouth, and walked in front of him with an angry face. Hey, what do you want to do? The lieutenant colonel was already trembling with fright. You guys are disrespectful to ladies and go back on your word, Sanji said as he raised his left foot. The lieutenant colonel roared immediately. What do you want to do? In the Sigu kingdom, attacking Wapol soldiers is equivalent to attacking His Majesty Wapol. And you can't even think about escaping by boat. Now your ships have been blocked. Even by boat, shore artillery, and warships it can also sink you. Sanji didn't intend to continue listening to his nonsense either. Air Force. Sanji kicked the lieutenant colonel away abruptly. After the battle, there were downed drum soldiers all over the place. Everyone also took a breath. What should we do next? They have no idea. Someone will come, Usopp said. We definitely can't stay in the city anymore, and according to them, it would be dangerous for us to take a boat, Rog said. That's true, Nami said. When I entered the port before, I saw a lot of heavy coastal forts and magnetic drum ships in the port. It's really hard to leave. Nami's face turned ugly when she said this. No matter what, we can't stay here any longer, Sauron said. Yes, and we still have wounded, Wei said. Then let's leave the urban area first and go to remote areas such as the countryside here, Rog said after thinking. Okay, then let's go quickly, Luffy said. Everyone quickly left the city. The battle just now really had a severe impact, and a large number of soldiers from the Magnetic Drum Kingdom arrived afterwards. Hurry up and impose martial law on this section of the city. Catch the pirates as soon as possible. The heavily armed soldiers of the Drum Kingdom searched this part of the city. At the port, the original wharf of the May was heavily guarded. Moreover, the surrounding forts and officers were already on alert. The ruler of Drum Kingdom did not expect that a group of young pirates would dare to directly resist him. Among the 7 majestic iron barrel-like peaks on Sigu Island, the tallest one is the top of the middle one. A castle covered with snow stands here. Most of the castle has been covered by the falling snow, but there are still some parts that are not covered. This part is made of gold, which also radiates gold in the cold snow. In other words, this castle is actually made of gold, but most of it is always covered by heavy snow for many years. Many servants sweep the snow in the castle courtyard to please the owner of the castle and the country. In the luxurious dining room of the castle, a long exaggerated table is filled with all kinds of delicious fruits. And exquisite roast beef, roast pigeon, roast chicken. On both sides of the table, waiters brought plates of delicious food very respectfully, and then took away plates that had been eaten. The whole process was smooth and flowing, very skillful. All who serve the diners are extremely careful not to make a sound. But in this quiet restaurant, the sound of a person gobbling like a beast makes people feel sick. At the far end of the table, a man in a rich fur coat was eating. It's delicious. Today's roast turkey is so delicious. Let me reward that chef. What the hell are you making? These scones are too sweet. I'll punish the chef to do hard labor. This turtle soup is really ordinary, I will work harder in the future. While the monarch was eating, everyone raised their voices. The dining king casts his eyes on a waiter carrying a pile of pizza. Hey, it's pine nut pizza today. It's not bad. Bring it to me, the king said arrogantly. Yes, your majesty. The waiter walked over cautiously. The king picked up the pine nut pizza on the plate and swallowed it in one bite. His mouth is large enough to swallow a plate of food in one bite. His face and body were all made of tin. Those eyes were full of tyranny and greed. It's delicious, this is what a king should enjoy. The king took one bite after another, and the pizza on the plate dwindled rapidly. The waiter looked at the king, although his appearance and eating were extremely ugly. But he dared not blink at all. Everyone should look at the king with humility and respect. If someone dared to show disgust and ridicule in their eyes, the result would only be swallowed by the king. There was once a minister who dared to do this, but was swallowed by the king. These waiters dare not. This king is Walpole, the ruler of the Drum Kingdom. Burp, it's so delicious. Walpole said, intoxicated. He also narrowed his eyes to enjoy the aftertaste. Ending that favorite moment of his day, mealtime. Walpole then got down to business. In fact, the state apparatus under Walpole's command with 2 power ministers at its core is sufficient to ensure the iron-blooded operation of the magnetic drum kingdom. Walpole also ate and drank a lot. However, some necessary things still need him to do. Okay, I'm going to the throne, Walpole said. The waiters on both sides immediately flattered him with a towel to wipe his face and a scepter that symbolized the king's power. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 61. Walpole stood up and left the restaurant with the golden scepter in his hand. The envoys behind him followed closely, serving the king with great care. We arrived at the hall where the throne was. Dozens of ministers are standing on the red carpet in front of the throne. His Majesty Walpole has arrived, shouted a waiter beside Walpole. All the ministers knelt on one knee to salute, and then looked respectfully at the throne. Walpole sat on the throne with extremely arrogant eyes. Everything in this country is his private property, and the ministers can only serve him. Everyone, the report on the important work of the kingdom begins today, Walpole said proudly. Dozens of ministers are divided into 2 columns, of which the left is civil servants and the right is generals. A minister headed by the left spoke first. Your Majesty Walpole, the new business agreement between Drum Country and the world government has been further expanded recently. In the new agreement, the world government is preparing various industries of the largest Walpole consortium in Drum Country to obtain official orders from the world government more easily, including medicine, medical personnel training, and Walpole new materials. These fields have received more orders from the world government. The minister said confidently. Unlike other ministers, this minister has an afro hairstyle. There is a very exaggerated beard around the mouth. Even in the severe cold climate of Sego country, he still had half of his legs and arms exposed and wore a large cloak. Well done, Prime Minister Cromaraman. After the new business agreement is reached, the purses of the Drum Country and I will be further enriched. The world government is very impressed with the Walpole Consortium's medicine and Walpole's new materials. Interested, Walpole said happily. Of course, His Majesty Walpole. The Walpole Consortium is now an excellent pharmaceutical and new material company favored by the world government, all member countries and countless regions around the world. Rare things are more expensive, so the world government will also the ones who value our products more, Cromaraman said respectfully. Although the tone is very respectful, compared with the submissiveness of other ministers, Cromaraman seems to be much more cordial to Walpole. Because Cromaraman is one of Walpole's 2 biggest confidants in the Drum Kingdom. Very good, how about the expansion of the Sego State Treasury, Walpole asked. Cromaraman said confidently, don't worry, we have built a new type of vault on the westernmost mountain. There are heavy guards there. The vault is enough to hold dozens of tons of gold, silver and other precious metals. It has already started send there the reserve gold and silver from the old vault. After hearing this, Wapoli said happily, well, this is also very good. There is also the matter about the expansion of the pharmaceutical factory that you reported to me last time. That's exactly what I want to say. We have requisitioned acres of new land to expand a new type of pharmaceutical factory. And all the talents in the medical department of the drum country have gone all out to research and use the new type of anesthesia for surgical operations. Large-scale production of medicines can also produce new types of high-end antibiotics, Kramaraman said. Wapoli listened to these reports with great satisfaction. Anyone would think that Wapoli and his ministers were serious people. Next, Kramaraman. Tell us about the wealth of the kingdom, Wapol said. Yes, your majesty, said Kramaraman. He took a piece of paper from a minister behind him. This month, the Signation's wealth income totaled 50 billion belly. The income comes from the branches of the Wapol Consortium around the world, as well as the port shipping controlled by the Wapol Consortium, as well as the Signation's own catering and life and production industry. More than 50% of the life and work of the residents of this country are controlled by the industrial group with the Wapol Consortium as the core. And the Wapol Consortium is 5% owned by you. So Your Majesty Wapol, you are still very perfectly controlling everything in the drum country, and also has a large number of overseas branch industries and world government orders. Of the billion belly wealth, million will be used to pay wages to the people. The rest is at your disposal, Roman Limon said. Well, that's what I want. The country's economic lifeline, and even the life and work of all citizens depend on my control. Control means everything. I now control the jobs of almost everyone in drum country, and can determine their lives. I am the most efficient in this way. I am everything in the drum country, Wapoli said proudly. In order to achieve tighter control over the magnetic drum country, Wapol formed the Wapol Consortium. The Wapol Consortium mobilized all the resources of the Siga kingdom, and combined with Wapol's king's power, achieved control over all economic life of the Siga kingdom. Not only did it consolidate Wapol's rule, it also made the citizens more tightly kidnapped. The taxation methods in the past were too bad. Once there were too many taxes, the people would be dissatisfied. Now I directly turn everything in drum country into my private property. People's food, clothing, housing, and transportation are all for me. They just give me people who work and receive wages. In this way, they lack the power to resist me on the material level. Wapoli was extremely satisfied with his behavior. After asking about Kramaraman, Wapol turned his attention to the general. At the front of the line of military commanders was a man with wavy lips and slender arms wearing a hat with two drooping corners. This person is another confidant of Wapoli, Commander Jess. Commander Jess, please report on your military affairs, Wapol said. Jess said respectfully, yes, His Majesty Wapol. First of all, I would like to talk about the kingdom's arms procurement. About 30 new large-caliber mortars recently purchased from Drexus have arrived at the port. Wapol's eyes lit up, and he said forcefully, really, the order for Drexus has arrived. That's great, Drexus is indeed the world's largest arms manufacturer. At the beginning, I compared Drexus with the world government's public. The products of the arms company found that the weapons produced by Drexus are durable and excellent. Although the output of the public arms companies under the world government can exceed that of Drexus many times, but in some special aspects of weapons, the arms of Drexus are incomparable. Comparable. Jess continued, Your Majesty. Now that they have arrived at the port, I will order them to install those large caliber mortars on the 7 tall peaks according to the plan. In this way, the 7 peaks of the magnetic drum kingdom will its equivalent to 7 huge forts. And the enemy can't capture it at all. Any foreign country and pirates can't attack the magnetic drum country. Okay, Really good. Go ahead and install the weapons produced by Drexus. The combination of force and economy is the most powerful, Walpole said happily. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 62. Okay, Your Majesty. I have already issued an order. Among the 31-meter diameter large-caliber mortars made by Drexus, 4 are installed on each of the 6 peaks on the left and right. 6 are installed on this mountain where the king's castle is located, GS said. Walpole was immersed in the intoxication of powerful force, and he could not wait to see all the large-caliber mortars standing on the top of the 7 peaks after being equipped. Jess looked at Walpole thoughtfully, and then said, Your Majesty, I still have important information about the resistance forces. After hearing this, Walpole's eyes became full of ferocity. Well, let's talk. Jess said, the resistance forces led by the former Kingdom Protector General and the traitor Dalton are lurking in many rural areas in the interior. These rural areas have been raided by the King's army many times, but there are still some remnants. I'm afraid that the other party, it was the establishment of tunnels that allowed them to avoid raids for a long time. That's all. Have you made any progress recently? Walpole asked. According to our judgment, the other party is likely to launch a large-scale new rebellion against the kingdom. But this is also the last blow. So if the other party does not succeed, it is a failure, Jess said. Wrong, Dalton is a traitor, he can only fail. It's just that we want him to fail in despair, Walpole scolded. Yes, Your Majesty, Jess said quickly. So have the countermeasures against Dalton and the resistance forces been drawn up? Walpole asked. Jess said flatteringly, Don't worry, the officers and I have already discussed the countermeasures. In addition to strengthening the defense, we will also preemptively eliminate Dalton and the resistance forces. That's good. Walpole's face became a little happier. As the king of the Drum Kingdom, I am everything in the Drum Kingdom. The Drum Kingdom is my private property. No one can resist me, and those who resist must be wiped out, Walpole said arrogantly. Walpole's philosophy is that Walpole is the state. Seeing that Walpole was a little happier, Jess asked again after consideration, Your Majesty, there has just been an incident where pirates attacked the king's army officers and soldiers. Did the pirates attack the king's officers and kill them? Walpole asked. No, this group of pirates pretended to be harmless and defrauded the landing. They killed and wounded more than 100 officers and soldiers in the city. Then they fled to the inland area, which is where Dalton and the resistance forces are active, Jess said. These pirates are so hateful, Walpole said angrily. Your Majesty, I am more worried that they will have an affair with Dalton and the resistance forces, Jess said. Since they are involved with the resistance forces, then destroy these pirates together, Walpole said. Okay, I will immediately issue a kill order to the army of the Drum Kingdom. Once these pirates are discovered, they will be killed on the spot, Jace said. So how? Walpole asked some more things and ended the meeting. Cromaramon and Jace went off to their own errands. Walpole reached the top of the tower of the Kingdom Castle and stood at the highest point of the Golden Castle. Walpole looked down on his kingdom with satisfaction. Walpole is the country of the magnetic drum, everything here belongs to me. At the same time, Rog, Sanji, and Usopp fled to the inland area of Drum Island. Finally, we have arrived in a relatively peaceful rural area, Usopp said when he saw a village with low houses in front of him. Ahead was a village full of low-rise houses, surrounded by pine forests. It's finally here, I really hope to eat more meat, Luffy said. It hurts so much here. I would like to drink some hot coffee or tea, Nami said, covering her body. Sanji heard this and said, Miss Nami, if you feel cold, I will help you make hot chocolate, hot orange juice, hot apple juice, hot milk pudding. Stop talking so much, Saran said. Everyone, we are going to the village here to avoid it first. Find a doctor by the way, but don't reveal that we are pirates. Now I am afraid that the Drum Kingdom has listed us as wanted criminals, Rog said. Is he wanted in the first place? It's just that this idiot captain is wanted, Saran said. Everyone entered the village. Not long after entering the village, a woman who looked as burly as a giant bear came in front of her. Wow, a bear, Usopp said in surprise. No, it's a gorilla, Luffy said. Everyone else is ashamed. Their observation skills are so good that people want to complain, Sanji said. Just two idiots, Zoro said. The woman as majestic as a bear approached and looked at everyone. Hello, madam. I would like to ask if there is a doctor in this village, Rog took the lead and said. The giant bear-like woman lowered her head and looked down at Rog, and then said, you can find a doctor and I can help you contact him. By the way, my family runs a hotel. Why don't you come and stay together? That would be great, Roger said. Saran immediately whispered, it's really refreshing. Anyway, there is a place to live, and there is a doctor. Let's go, Wei said. Rog asked the giant bear-like woman again, Madam, what is your name? My name is Maria the Onion Bear, the woman said. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 63. Maria the Onion Bear led the crowd to a hotel in the village. Maria's hotel is written on the front door of the hotel. They entered the lobby of this hotel together. Although the area is small, the layout is quite simple. There are guests, so you should be more diligent, Maria the Onion Bear shouted. There are two teenagers in the hotel. Both teenagers are tall and burly, but they are still young, but put together with the Onion Bear Maria, they really look like two cubs and a female bear. It looks like it fits too well. Wow, two little bears, Luffy said. It's really similar, Usopp also said. Saran looked at the two of them again as if complaining. These are my two sons, Levin and Rice. You can tell them if you have anything to say, Maria the Onion Bear said. Then Maria the Onion put down her things. Okay, everyone. I'll contact the doctor later, Onion Seong, Maria said. Thank you so much, Nami said. Then Maria the Onion Bear left the hotel and walked outside. Everyone sat on the chairs in the lobby, and some went to the hotel room. There are not many guests in this hotel, so it seems relatively quiet. Everyone hurriedly asked for some tea to drink to warm their bodies. Luffy even asked for some meat dishes from the hotel and ate them wantonly. Usopp and Rog chatted with the two sons of Maria the Onion Bear. It's really peaceful here, compared to the city, it's really idyllic, Usopp said. Well, this is an area that is not too much controlled by Wapol. It is the most peaceful area on the island. It is also an area where the magnetic Drum Kingdom has maintained its original appearance decades ago, Levin said. Really? What do you mean by maintaining the original appearance of decades ago? Usopp asked. In the past, Drum Country was an idyllic and leisurely country. Of course, this is what my mother and other neighbors said. At that time, Drum Country was full of beautiful ice and snow and 7 majestic mountains. The citizens also expired a leisurely and happy life, Levine said. However, until one day, the old king passed away. The new king is also the current monarch, and Wapoli succeeded him. Wapoli was different from the old king in his generosity and kindness. He was a very ambitious person. He was greedy for power and he loves money. After he ascended the throne, he didn't pay much attention to the establishment of the Wapoli Consortium. Using the advanced medical industry in the Drum Country, it further developed into a comprehensive multinational large-scale enterprise with pharmaceuticals, medical care, and doctor training. Moreover, Wapoli himself is a devil fruit user with the ability to swallow the fruit. With the ability to swallow the fruit, he created a lot of new materials. For example, the famous Wapoli alloy is his creation. Wapol alloy, Usopp said in shock after hearing this. Yes, Walpole's ability to swallow fruit is to swallow objects and combine them. He can produce many different types of alloys by swallowing different objects. For example, combining iron with tin, copper with lead, aluminum and zinc combining, even mixing multiple metals, Levine said. Usopp was shocked, and said, "It turns out that Wapoli alloy was produced by King Wapoli of the Magnetic Drum Kingdom." Usopp often likes to make various small weapons, and he naturally knows Wapol alloy. Levin continued, "Yes, Wapoli alloy has quickly become a major invention in the world. It is marketed on great routes and all over the world. Even the world government has become a major customer of Wapoli alloy. The medical industry in the Magnetic Drum Country, plus Wapoli alloy. The two major industries form the strong foundation of the Wapoli Consortium. With the medical industry and the Wapoli alloy, the Wapoli Consortium has become a powerful multinational enterprise. Even the Drum Country itself is an idyllic country. It has become a developed industrial country. Wapol has even become a guest of the world government. He is not only the king of a country, but also the boss of a consortium." Usopp and Rogue looked at each other. Usopp said, "Is this Wapol still capable of doing business?" Levin and Lay had wry smiles on their faces. "Get down to business," Levine said with a wry smile. "He's a really selfish guy," Rice said. "What do you mean?" Rog asked. "Wapol is an extreme power and money maniac. The Wapol Consortium he founded has included % of the people in the Drum Country into a system that is highly governed and exploited by him. He can take advantage of the wealth created go % or more. On the surface, the Wapol Consortium even made a leap into an industrial power. The citizens were exploited even more. Living standards and materials have only improved a little, but most of the fruits have been was extracted by him. In addition, Wapol also used the power of the king to seize national land for industrial purposes. The wealth earned was used to strengthen industry and military construction. Through economic and military means, Wapol has become successfully turned the Magnetic Drum Country into his private wealth," Rice said, very dissatisfied. When Wei heard this, her expression changed a lot. Wapoli only became stronger because of his power and wealth. The people did not support the king, but were controlled and feared. Now there is no relationship between the king and the subjects in the Magnetic Drum Kingdom, but the relationship between the slave and the slave owner. Wapo, as I said personally, Wapoli is the country. The Drum Kingdom is his private property," Rice said lamentingly. "Unacceptable." Vivi stood up angrily. "You actually treat your citizens as slaves. A king who doesn't love his own people and instead pursues control and money power. It's really too much. Wei has been a very responsible princess since she was a child, and she hates the cruelty and extremeness in Wapol's heart." "Vivi, don't be angry. We also know what that guy Wapol is, just look at his subordinates," Rog said. At the same time, Rog also remembered the appearance of the people after entering the urban area. Although the urban area was bustling, there were no crowds. Instead, the entire country is filled with rigidity. Cold and harsh, this is the status quo of Magnetic Drum Country. Not only in the climate, but also in the hearts of the people. Prosperity on the surface, real cruelty on the inside. On the contrary, this inland village is full of peace. Although it is remote, it is very humane. Wait a minute, is Wapol now completely in control of the Drum Kingdom? There must be things he can't control. For example, people's hearts, Rog asked. Levin and Rice glanced at each other. Yes, there are still people in the Magnetic Drum Kingdom who resisted the tyrant Wapol. And that person was born under Wapoli's command, Levin said. He is the former Kingdom Protector General, Dalton, Rice said. Both of them showed some admiration on their faces. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 64. General Dalton sincerely fights for the Drum Country to return to that kind of peace and make all this change, Rice said, full of admiration. General Dalton fought for equality in the Drum Kingdom. He always told people to face difficulties bravely. We admired him too, but we were too young to follow him, Levine said. Since there is resistance, it is remarkable, Rog said. Dalton in the Drum Nation rebelled against Walpole, while in the world there were dragons rebelling against the world government. Real men are those who dare to stand up to power. Oh, that's good. We also hate that Walpole. That guy made trouble for us not long after we landed ashore, Usopp said. Yes, we are pirates, Luffy said happily. Zoro glanced at Luffy and said, it was exposed so soon. Don't forget that we are wanted. But fortunately, they also hate Walpole, Nami said. Levin and Rice looked at everyone in surprise. You are actually pirates? The two brothers asked in surprise. With pride on his face, Usopp raised his thumb and pointed to himself and said, yes, we are pirates. I am Captain Usopp. Are you the captain? Lay asked with eyes shining. It's not me. Luffy's head stretched out in front of the two brothers like rubber. It actually stretched, Lay said in surprise. Could it be that you are a devil fruit user? Levin asked. Luffy pulled his body over and said, I'm a rubber man. Lay said curiously, no wonder the body can stretch. But I'm the captain, Luffy said again. Captain Usopp is actually my nickname, he is the real captain, Usopp also said. By the way, the food in this hotel is not enough. Let's find a restaurant later, Luffy said. But wait for the doctor to come first, Roger said. After a while, there was the sound of sleigh sliding outside the hotel. At the same time, Maria the Onion Bear's thick voice came in. It's hard work for you to be here. At the same time, the door of the hotel was opened. Maria the Onion Bear came in, followed by an old woman in purple and a reindeer. The old woman in purple clothes was very revealing, and she thought she was a fashionable girl. She also held a bottle of rum in her hand. The reindeer has brown fur, graceful antlers, and a pair of defensive eyes. What's going on? Usopp looked at the visitor strangely. Isn't this Doctor? Sanji asked strangely. It's just an old woman, Sauron also said after looking at her. It's really a doctor, Nami also said strangely. Looks like it's finally here, Roger said. At the same time, his eyes were fixed on the reindeer. Wow, a horse with horns, Luffy shouted with surprise on his face. Everyone looked at Luffy helplessly. Is this a reindeer? Okay, Nami said. Onion Bear Maria also happily said to everyone, everyone has been waiting for a long time, this is the doctor. Is the doctor reliable? It's just an old woman, Usopp said looking at the old woman who was wearing very revealing clothes. This lady is truly a doctor, Sanji said. After hearing this, the old woman's tall and thin body rushed towards the two of them. Immediately there was a scream in the hall. Sanji and Usopp were kicked and smashed into the wall of the hotel, with their heads stuck in. It's scary, Nami said with a change of face. What a fierce old woman, Sauron said in a low voice. Luffy rushed to the reindeer very excitedly. Reindeer horses are so fun, Luffy said happily. Also, Grandma, is this your pet? Luffy said to the old woman beside him. There was a trace of hatred in the corner of the old woman's mouth. Luffy's body was kicked directly out of the hotel. Don't call me old, I'm only 139 years old. And I'm single, the old woman said. Everyone looked at her with shame. Onion Seong Maria introduced, this is Gulawa's doctor. She is a very remarkable doctor. The 139-year-old Dr. Gulwa looked at everyone, lifted a bunch of rum in her hand and poured it down her throat. Wai Wei stepped forward and said politely, Hi, Mrs. Gulwa. Several of us have been injured. I hope you can help treat them. Dr. Gulwa looked at Wai Wei and said, Really? But my fees are quite high. No problem, as long as we can heal our injured people, Wai Wei said. Then Sanji, Zoro, Rog, and Luffy, who were injured in the battle on the Sorrow's airship, began to receive treatment. All four suffered traumatic injuries, which were bandaged but still needed to be dealt with. "Okay, Chopper. Give me the medical kit," Gulliver said. The reindeer Chopper gave the medical kit to Gulliver, and then his body began to deform. Originally looked like a reindeer, his body quickly became thinner, and finally he became a cute and half-human Chopper. That is to say, it has become a human animal. Seeing that Chopper has become so cute, everyone sighed. "It's so cute," Nami said. "Animal fruit," Sanji said. "Hey, don't keep your mind on this," Zoro said. Luffy looked at it in surprise for a while, and said, "It turned into a fox." "It's not a fox, it's a reindeer," Chopper said angrily. "Wow, talking fox," Luffy said. Chopper said angrily, "I said I was a reindeer." "It's nothing, you can become a pirate with us," Luffy said. Everyone looked at Luffy. "This idiot has started again," Zoro complained in a low voice. Chopper looked at Luffy in shock. Not only are few humans talking warmly to him, but the word pirate also reminds him of the most important person in his life. "Pirate," Chopper said. The little guy looked puzzled. "Yes, we are pirates." "You can be pirates with us," Luffy said. Chopper scanned everyone strangely, but finally gritted his teeth. "What are you talking about? I'm only responsible for helping Gulawa's doctor," Chopper said. This cute reindeer looked at the medical equipment in his hand again and continued to tidy up. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 65. Chopper continued to help Gulwa heal his mother. Soon the injuries of the four people were healed. Luffy moved his body very happily, and said, "Really, it's finally back to normal now. Your wounds can be treated and the wounds will become smooth. Just continue to perfuse my medicine," Gulawa said. "Ma'am, I didn't expect your medical skills to be so good," Sanji said politely. Guriva put her hands on her hips and said, "Okay, it's time for you to pay. Each person has belly. For four people, that's belly." Nami said in shock, "This is also." Before she could finish speaking, Wei stood in front of her and quickly took out a dozen banknotes. "Thank you, Mrs. Gulawa," Wei said. Then Wei said to Nami again, "It's okay, as long as everyone can be better." Dr. Gulwa counted the banknotes and said, "Well, this is really refreshing." Then the old woman looked at the crowd again. "I can't tell, you guys are actually pirates," Gulawa said. "It's nothing surprising, who said that pirates must be vicious?" Usopp said. Dr. Gulawa took another bottle of rum from the hotel, drank it and said, "Well, you are a cute pirate. But since you are pirates, how did you get here?" "Ah, it was Wapol's men who charged some fees so that we could stay for 2 days temporarily. But they went back on their word," Rog said. Dr. Gulwa shook the wine bottle in her hand and said, "I see. Wapol is really a very greedy guy. He will make money even if the pirates have money. But why do you come here again? Yes. Isn't there a hospital in the city?" "Wapol's men turned their backs and hunted us down again because they were greedy for the bounty of the pirate arrest warrant," Rog said. "Oh, really? Then how much is your bounty?" Dr. Gulwa said. Before Rog could speak, Luffy said happily, 3,000 million Baileys, just my bounty." Gulliver looked at Luffy in a normal way, and continued to take a sip of wine. "What 3,000 million Baileys?" Dr. Gulwa's voice shook the entire hotel. Dr. Gulwa looked at everyone carefully and said, "If there are so many of you, I will arrest you too." Everyone looked at her helplessly. Nami immediately said helplessly, "What, you still worship money so much at such an old age?" "Aren't you the same?" Saran said with a face full of complaints. "Just kidding, I wouldn't do that. After all, people rely on medical skills for a living. And you can say that you came here because you were hunted down by Wapali's men, Gulawa said. Usopp and Sanji looked ashamed, and said, "It seems so noble." The Dr. Guriva continued, "And you can be regarded as Wapol's enemies. I also hate Wapol. So I am very happy to treat you. Of course, I treat the resistance forces and Dalton more happy. Ms. Gulawa, you also treat that Dalton and the resistance forces," Rog said. "That's right, they are the real heroes of Magnetic Drum Kingdom," Dr. Gulawa said earnestly. "Ah, are you pirates from outside? I didn't know that the rural inland area in this area is the stronghold of resistance forces," Gulawa Dr. Lady added. Roger looked at Chopper again. Chopper's eyes were also full of complicated emotions. "Almost everyone in this kingdom hates Wapol to death. Even Chopper," said the nurse Gulliver. While everyone was in this village, a large group of mighty army advanced towards the inland village area. There are a large number of cavalry, infantry, and carriages pulling numerous cannons and supplies in the army. There are more than people, and the equipment is heavy firepower. In front of this group of troops, Jess with a wavy mouth commanded the army to attack the inland villages. "Well, it's finally not snowing in the sky," Jess stretched his hands into the air and said. Riding on a burly tall horse, Jess looked at the villages in front of him. "Commander Jess, the front is an area occupied by resistance forces," a cavalry major came to report. "Very good, today is the fate of these rebels," Jess said long and hard. "The village ahead is about to start an astonishing massacre." Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 66. The king's army of more than people swept across the vast snowy field. The ground was densely covered with various horse hooves and human footprints, as well as the tracks of carriages. Arriving in front of the inland village area, Jace looked towards the villages. The king's army of more than people also stopped and began to prepare for battle. Unexpectedly, today is the end of these rebels. Those who dare to disobey His Majesty Wapol will only die. This rural area that harbors resistance forces will be reduced to ruins. Jace's solution was to completely destroy the inland countryside. If the territory occupied by the resistance forces is wiped out, then there will be no resistance forces. "Artillery unit ready," Jace said, waving his hand. Soldiers on 100 horse-drawn carriages with cannons unloaded the cannons from the carriages, then turned the guns and pointed them at the countryside ahead. "Commander Jess, all the cannons are ready," said a colonel in charge of the artillery unit. Jace nodded and said, "Okay, start the bombardment. Turn the area where the resistance is entrenched into scorched earth." 100 cannons were aimed at the countryside. "Preparations are complete, start bombardment." With the order issued, 100 cannons began to shell violently. The first round of hundreds of shells hit the roads and squares of the countryside in front of us. With the completion of the first round of shelling, the artillerymen were well trained to load the second wave of shells. Another 100 shells bombarded violently. Looking at the sea of fire in front of him, Jace's face was full of smiles. To deal with the rebels, we must use a devastating blow to completely wipe them out. There was another burst of cannon fire. A large number of houses in this village were bombed. Rog, Sanji, and others who were in the hotel in the village felt that everything around them was shaking. "Wow, what's going on?" Usopp yelled, holding his head. "There's an earthquake, ha ha ha," Luffy said excitedly. "You're still so happy," Nami angrily hit Luffy on the head with her fist. "Could it be a shelling?" Rog said doubtfully. At this moment, a shell suddenly hit the hotel. The second floor of the hotel was blown up, and the ceiling of the lobby on the first floor was also blown apart. "Wow!" Usopp and Nami yelled in horror. "This is not okay. Everyone needs to evacuate here," Rog said. Dr. Gulawa also looked around. She was very stable after being bombarded so violently. "Wapol, it seems you have taken action. You want to destroy the resistance base together. After saying this, the Dr. Gilwa took another sip of rum. Now the village has been heavily shelled, and everyone in the hotel rushed out together. Rushing outside, Roger and everyone looked around. Rows of artillery shells were shot over, and houses in rural areas were hit and exploded in large numbers. Smoke and flames rose into the sky. The direction of the opponent's attack. Zoro quickly discovered the direction of the opponent's shells. Sanji also looked, and saw that in the direction of the village, a large number of troops had not been deployed. Swarms of cannon fired volleys of shells here. Luffy was very excited, he jumped up immediately. Rubber balloon. Luffy sucked in air all over his body and became like a balloon. A shell hit Luffy's body, denting the chubby balloon body and entering the back. Luffy ricocheted the cannonball. On the artillery position, the artillerymen had just fired a wave of shells, but when they were about to reload, they saw a shell flying over. Or fly back. The shells are flying back. The artillerymen fled in fright. There was a loud noise, and the fire above the artillery position burst into the sky. Jace looked at the artillery emplacement in surprise. How could this happen? Jace said in surprise. A soldier hurried to report. Sir, one of the shells we fired was bounced by an unknown person. It seems to be the previous pirate. Jess quickly picked up the binoculars and looked into the distance. In the telescope, I saw that Luffy turned into a balloon and bounced up. These pirate bastards are here. They are the pirates in the report, and they really escaped here. It just happened to be reduced to ashes with this place, Jess said. Jess then gave new orders to the artillery. Use all your strength to bombard the area where the Straw Hats and gang are, and no one will survive. The artillery units then aimed their cannons at Luffy and Roger's area. The violent shells continued to fire.